Welcome to New Community Church. After 70-ish weeks, this is it, the final episode of the live stream. And at this stage, we have no plans to recommission a second series. From next Sunday, the 25th of July, we are back live and exclusively in person. Over the next few minutes, I want to share with you some of our plans for the summer period and our thinking beyond into the autumn term. So if you are one of the people who uses this middle section to zone out, make a cup of tea, check your emails, go to the loo, whatever, you have about 30 seconds whilst I welcome guests. Hello, we're thrilled you're here, and encourage anyone who has not yet done it to take a step towards us by visiting newcom.church/connect. Is it this way or that way? You can also visit newcom.church/give to take another step on your faith adventure and start giving today. Well, that's that done. Summer. This week, restrictions are finally lifted. And whilst we're very conscious that for some people this will lead to increased anxiety and concern for very legitimate reasons, after a year and a half of constantly not being allowed to do things, we can finally do some of them, including singing. It's going to be wonderful. As things stand, there will be no restrictions on communal worship, and things like the wearing of masks will no longer be enforced. As Dave said last week, and if you missed it, I strongly recommend that you watch it back again, we are a people of faith, not fear. We're also a body, and we honour, love, and respect one another. And so we will respect individual conscience with no judgment on the issue of mask wearing. Some of us will continue to wear one, and some will not. And social distancing too. We're going to leave the chairs in the position they're currently in, which means two things. Firstly, it will mean our meetings are not too big numerically. They won't get overcrowded. And secondly, it means if you're not yet comfortable sitting next to someone from outside your household, there are spaces for you to sit separately without any problem. We also have alternative arrangements for those for whom returning to in-person meetings is not yet possible for whatever reason. Please contact your community leader or the office for more details, and we will work with you to help serve you best. As we manage the transition from socially distancing rules to normality, it will require us to continue to act as we have done for the last 18 months, with patience, grace, and adaptability. Over the next few weeks, things will probably need to be changed and tweaked as we go. Over the summer, we'll have two meetings at 10:30 and 3:30. And whilst the requirement to book tickets have ended, just as we would do for Christmas or a special event, it would really help us keep a track of things and monitor things like when we need to add extra meetings. If you could let us know via Church Suite which meeting you'll be coming to. The summer is always a little different. Kids in, shorter meetings. Parents, there will be kids' church at the 3:30 meeting. In the morning, kids are of course welcome, but parents, your kids will need to sit with you throughout the whole meeting. One final thing about summer, Tuesday nights. We're going to gather to worship and spend time praying for one another with a focus on encountering God and being filled freshly with His Spirit. You are so welcome to join us. Summer, done. Let's talk about the autumn. The big question really, I guess, is when will we go back to meeting like we did before, in different venues at different times? Well, answering that is, to be honest with you, not so straightforward. There are, of course, lots of practical and pragmatic considerations in terms of buildings and serving teams and the organisation of such things. But more importantly, there is also the consideration of where we're at as a church. Using a biblical metaphor, where's the flock? How's the flock doing? By September, it will have been 18 months. And there's been lots of movement in that time. Some have moved on, many have joined us. We've had births and deaths and everything in between. We need to put faces to names, to hear one another's stories, to learn, to reflect, to grow, to give space. We've had lots of prophetic reminders and encouragements in this regard. By every measure, we're a very diverse church, and some are itching and raring to go. Others are not. Many of us are somewhere in the middle. None of us have been unaffected by the last year, whether we realize it or not. We each have a story to tell. And we're a community of stories, and our stories are interconnected. They shape us and help build our lives together. We're a body. One part cannot say it does not need the other, or it's not affected by another part. We are joined together, and we are being built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. We are still in what we feel and are calling as a regathering stage. And it's partly for these reasons that in September we will initially continue to gather together as one church. But truthfully, a huge part of this regathering period, and the reason why we're not rushing back into different locations, is that we need to give space and consideration to what the next chapter of our corporate story here will look like. A lot has changed, globally and locally, since we last met before lockdown. You simply cannot go through something like a global pandemic without asking big questions about why we do the things we do and what will we do next. What lessons have we learned? What's God done in us and through us? And perhaps most importantly, what's He wanting to do going forward? As an eldership and leadership team, we've spent time praying, talking, processing, planning. And in response to the prophetic and in response to where we feel God is leading, we want to go on a journey together to really allow God to reshape this church to become all that He'd have us to be. The new community story has had many chapters. We have some deep foundations. There are things that we carry within our DNA, prophetic promises we live with, all of which we need to see reimagined for the world in which we now live. It's time for another new chapter in the story. The purpose of regathering again as one church is not for our own comfort or ease. Yes, we want to give plenty of space for refreshing and restoration and renewal, but the primary reason for regathering is to give space for God to reshape, retool, recommission us to be more fruitful at doing the things He's called us to do, to go and make disciples of all nations. As we reimagine what building a church of lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds in lots of different locations looks like, we don't think it will be exactly the same as before. We believe God is calling us to see a new wineskin emerge, to prioritize making disciples, to prioritize cultivating an Acts 2 culture, to focus on being less efficient and more adaptable, more flexible. We talk of being disciples, family members, missionaries, and we feel the next chapter of the story will be marked by prioritizing growing in those things, by being more personal. God has always been more interested in people than programs. Our absolute priority is making disciples, not simply gathering a crowd. The church we see in Scripture was a diverse body of people learning and growing together. And this happens primarily not in meetings, as important as they are, but in real life. Personal, patient. God's ways are not our ways. We tend to prefer big and dramatic and noisy, but Jesus talked about small, quiet, often hidden things like salt and seed. Farming takes time. Harvest comes when God decides. We need to not try and get God to do something that we think needs to be done, but to become aware of what God is doing, so we can respond to it and participate in it. Personal, patient, and local. These things take place in local places. Best way to make disciples is in community and on mission, and the deepest community comes when we're on mission together as Jesus' disciples empowered by the Spirit. And the most effective mission takes place when people both hear the gospel proclaimed by faithful disciples and see it lived out in vibrant community. Personal, patient, local. This is the journey that we're going to go on as we gather together for the purpose of multiplication once again. As we hit the summer, connect in, get reconnected with the body, the family, the people of God, get refreshed spiritually, physically, emotionally. If you're going on holiday, can't wait for mine. Enjoy it. Have a rest, have some fun, laugh, relax. It's been a tough year. But would you also pray? Would you dream? Would you allow God to stir your heart and your affections to speak to you? You have a part to play. It probably won't look the same as it did before, but that's okay, because things have changed and will change, and we're not the same anymore. This summer we will celebrate. Next term we will begin the journey together of an exciting new chapter in the story of our church. We believe that there are better days ahead, not simply because restrictions are lifting, but because Jesus is building His church. His kingdom is advancing. The ingathering of the elect from every tribe and every tongue will not slow, and we are participants in His story. Personally, patiently, locally, we will continue to grow as disciples, family members, and missionaries to the glory of God and for the sake of a broken and lost world. God bless you. Have a great summer.